So, I mean, with what happened with Coco and her after her match, and look, I empathize with her. I mean, I know what it feels like to break a record, and I've done it a few times in my career. So I know how it is to be frustrated, particularly after a match where you underperform. And I agree with her. You know, it's really sad that you can't basically move away anywhere and hide and what do you call that? Fume out your frustration, your anger in a way that won't be captured by a camera.
Novak Djokovic just shook up the Australian Open and WTA after defending Coco Gauff's complaints about privacy. The tournament, which had spent days dismissing player concerns, suddenly announced plans to reduce cameras and pay closer attention to player feedback. Media outlets that previously labeled Gauff as entitled are now scrambling to backtrack. One statement from tennis's biggest star, and the narrative completely collapsed, prompting instant regret from those who criticized her. So what actually happened? Coco Gauff, after being eliminated in the Australian Open quarterfinals, walked off the court toward what she believed was a private area and smashed her racket multiple times, 7 or 8 hits against the ground. Footage of the moment went viral. She complained about the lack of privacy, but broadcasters and media initially defended airing the footage. Veteran tennis commentator Marcus Buckland even publicly called her complaints ridiculous. Djokovic's intervention changed everything. By backing Gauff's right to privacy, he forced the tournament and WTA to reverse course almost immediately, proving the influence of star players and shining a spotlight on how the media handles athletes' personal moments. The speed of the turnaround was genuinely stunning, and it raises an important question. Is Djokovic genuinely advocating for players' privacy, or is he simply shielding them from accountability? Comment below with your take.
If you're the broadcaster, if you're the Australian broadcaster, and you capture that,
You're going to show it.
You're going to show it.
You're going to show it.
You're not going to show it.
I suppose it depends what relationship you want with the athletes. And then when the athletes are guarded, and when managers of football clubs don't want to speak because they know that ultimately what they say is going to be weaponized and used against them, the flip side of that is that you get this standoff relationship where you don't get insight. So it's a balancing act. I mean, was there a necessity to show that? I don't think there is. I don't think there's any value in it. I can understand why they're doing it, because it's there to be done. And if it's there to be done, I guess you do it, because that's what you are. You're a broadcaster and you think there's something in that, and you can show this person in their worst, i.e. this is how a professional athlete behaves when they lose.
Djokovic responded by pointing out that cameras have been present in those areas since 2019. His argument was simple and logical. Players are aware of their existence, and being filmed in public areas is just part of being a professional athlete. If athletes want true privacy, they should retreat to the locker room. Otherwise, they need to accept that public spaces at tournaments will be under cameras. His reasoning was consistent and in line with how sports media has operated for decades. The debate took a bizarre turn when EGAT chimed in with a zoo animal analogy, claiming that players are being monitored like animals, even during the most private moments, like when they go to the bathroom. The comparison drew widespread criticism and added fuel to an already heated discussion about privacy, professionalism, and media coverage in tennis.
Tennis players, or are we like animals in the zoo where they are observed like even when they poop, so...
That hyperbolic comparison was quickly mocked by most commentators, who called it over the top and ridiculous. The general consensus in the media was that players were being entitled, failing to understand what they had signed up for, and needed to accept that extensive coverage is an inherent part of professional sports. Initially, the Australian Open and WTA stood their ground. Tournament director Craig Tiley made it clear. This is how the tournament operates. Players are aware of the rules, and the cameras exist to create content that connects fans with athletes. The WTA stayed silent, and broadcasters continued defending their right to film in designated player areas. At that point, everything seemed settled, until Novak Djokovic spoke up, and suddenly, the entire narrative shifted.
But we live in a society and in times where content is everything. So it's a deeper discussion. I guess it's really hard for me to see the trend changing in the opposite direction, meaning we take out cameras. I mean, if you see it's only going to be as it is, or even more cameras. I mean, I'm surprised that we don't have no cameras while we're taking shower. I mean, that's probably the next step. I'm against it. I mean, I think there should be always a limit and kind of a borderline where, okay, this is our space, but you know, people, commercially, you know, there's always a demand, you know, how players warm up, what do they say when they speak to their coaches, and what's their cool down, and you know, they want to see us arriving in the car and walking through corridors.
Novak Djokovic publicly expressed empathy for Coco Gauff, agreeing with her concerns and calling it alarming that players are constantly under surveillance, even in moments they expect to be private. He criticized the level of monitoring in designated player areas, framing the issue as a fundamental matter of athlete well-being and mental health. By doing so, Djokovic shifted the discussion from entitlement and media rights to the human side of sports, emphasizing that protecting players' privacy is essential for their mental and emotional health.
So yeah, you got to be careful. I mean, in a sense, because I'm on the tour for quite a bit, so I remember the time when we didn't have so many cameras, and now and then that transition of really getting used to having an eye that you don't hear and may sometimes forget about always on you is frightening, because you know, at times, you know, like you want to relax and maybe, I don't know, be yourself in a sense that you don't want public to see, but it's really hard for me to see that's going backwards, you know. It's just something that I guess we have to accept.
Novak Djokovic's intervention is inherently ironic for several reasons. He has spent his entire career courting media attention, building his brand, and leveraging his fame for commercial opportunities. He's not some privacy crusader who shuns cameras. He knows exactly how to use media to his advantage. But Djokovic also possesses something that Coco Gauff and Swiatek don't: institutional power. As the most successful male tennis player of his generation, with 24 Grand Slam titles and a former presidency of the ATP Player Council, when Djokovic speaks on player rights, tournaments and governing bodies listen, they cannot afford to alienate him. Within hours of his statement defending Gauff's concerns, the Australian Open began backtracking. Craig Tiley, who had previously defended the extensive camera coverage, suddenly announced that the tournament would listen to players and make adjustments to ensure their comfort. He explicitly acknowledged the complaints and committed to reviewing policies, a complete 180 degrees from his prior position. Shortly after, the WTA released a statement through chairperson Valerie Camilillo, declaring that concerns about cameras in off-court areas were completely valid and represented a fair and human request. The WTA emphasized the need for players to have spaces to recover without constant surveillance and confirmed that providing such spaces was part of their responsibility. Notably, the WTA also announced immediate reductions in camera coverage in off-court areas, a major policy shift, not just a review. Broadcasters who had defended filming in public spaces suddenly went quiet. Commentators who had labeled players as entitled began publishing sympathetic pieces. Tournament organizers who defended their content strategy scrambled to appear player-friendly. And all of this occurred because one male superstar validated complaints that female athletes had been raising for days. The gender dynamic is impossible to ignore. When women speak up, their concerns are dismissed. When a male star echoes the same issue, it triggers immediate policy changes. At the same time, Djokovic's stance exposes a layer of hypocrisy. Throughout his career, he has actively cultivated media attention, participated in documentaries, and allowed cameras into his personal space when it benefited his brand, yet now frames constant surveillance as frightening. He voluntarily consented to being filmed for an entire Grand Slam Netflix series, but when cameras capture other players in unflattering moments, it suddenly becomes a violation of privacy. The underlying issue isn't privacy at all, it's control. Athletes want to dictate when and how they are portrayed, enjoy the benefits of media exposure, and avoid scrutiny when it doesn't serve them. Djokovic has framed this as a matter of player rights and well-being, cleverly positioning himself as an advocate, even if the real motivation is maintaining control over image and narrative. The Australian Open's immediate reversal illustrates just how much leverage star players wield. One statement from a top athlete can force governing bodies to rethink policies and reshape media practices, revealing both the power dynamics and the gender disparities that still exist in professional sports. Organizers will publicly defend their policies right up until it risks alienating their biggest stars. They'll talk about fan engagement and content creation, until someone like Djokovic or Serena Williams makes it a controversy. Then suddenly, player concerns matter. Craig Tiley's statement about balancing fan engagement with player comfort is revealing. That fine line shifts depending on who's complaining. Lesser-known players' concerns about conditions, schedules, or treatment were often ignored. Top stars? Suddenly, every complaint requires careful navigation. The WTA's reversal is even more striking. Their statement declaring player privacy concerns completely valid directly contradicts their previous silence while broadcasters defended filming those same moments. If these concerns were genuinely important, why wasn't anything said when Gauff first raised them? The answer is simple. The WTA doesn't prioritize privacy as a principle. They care about managing PR and avoiding controversy with their biggest names. When Gauff complained, she was one player. When Djokovic backed her, it became a movement demanding action. This incident highlights the tension in modern sports media. Leagues and tournaments crave behind-the-scenes access because it drives fan engagement and creates parasocial connections. Fans love that access. Athletes, however, want privacy and control over their portrayal. These interests are fundamentally incompatible. You can't provide total behind-the-scenes access while guaranteeing full privacy. Historically, privacy loses. But when athletes wield enough power to push back, organizations reluctantly reconsider coverage. Compare this to other sports. NFL players are constantly filmed in locker rooms, sidelines, and tunnels. NBA players are followed through warm-ups, timeouts, and post-game moments. Cameras are normalized, but private spaces still exist. Tennis, however, has not found that balance. Organizers have been pushing the limits since 2019, keeping cameras in corridors, gyms, and warm-up areas, and only changed course when pressured by a high-profile star. The media's response to Djokovic's intervention has been telling. Commentators who mocked Gauff's complaints are now quietly accepting reduced camera access. Nobody wants to contradict Djokovic directly, so the narrative is reframed as reasonable adjustments rather than a forced reversal. Marcus Buckland's position defending professional media access now looks awkward. His logic, that players should expect cameras in public tournament areas, was sound. But in professional sports, institutional power outweighs principle. Djokovic has more influence than Buckland, so Djokovic wins. One statement from tennis's top star overturned years of policy overnight. Media outlets scramble to appear sympathetic, but the truth is clear. Power, not principle, drives decisions in professional sports, and Djokovic just reminded everyone who holds it.